All right. As soon as I think I'm out, they drag me back in. All of my harvesting is done. However, now, because it works so well, I'm expected to do all the harvesting for my father-in-law, too. So, this is what we've got for today. I pulled up all of his carrots and stuff that was remaining, but the main thing is the celery. Germans have a couple of different types of celery. We have what we commonly in the United States think of celery, which is the stalk or stem celery. You know, you take it off, dip it, crunch it. Okay. The Germans also have one that grows in a big bulb. They call it kohlrabi or a celery. And the thing is, the tops and so on can still be used. So what I've done is taken all the tops from his root celery, and all the tops, mind you, the root celery comes out. However, I clip off and leave a little bit of the stem celery, or the stick celery, and hopefully that's going to regrow. I've already got some of it regrowing, and it's friggin', we're into November, and the stuff is still just sprouting out happy as can be. But what we're going to do here, let me run this down, show you one of my other little secret weapons. We've got all the stuff dehydrated, and I'm going to crush that up by hand. Then that's going to go into, and excuse the thing, I've been out in the yard all day. It's our first sunny day in like 2 weeks, so I've been out trying to get out grass out of the garden, clean up the Japanese stone garden area, that kind of thing. But once I've got this done, I'm going to have to change, throw on my apron, and get this done. But it's now dehydrated. The leaves, the stems, the stick celery, everything got chopped up and dehydrated. Now that's going to go into, once again, my coffee grinder, the big one. The problem is the big coffee grinder will only grind down to about a 20 mesh size. Now, by a mesh, it means that, let me come back up here. By a mesh, that means if I was to take a square that is 1 inch square, and I was to punch 20 holes in it, that's a 20 mesh. Your typical flour ranges anywhere from a coarse grind, which is an 80 mesh, up to your fine or your white flour, which is a 300 mesh. All right. I'm getting me a machine for that because I'm finding what I'm able to do here with my current equipment is only up to about a 30 mesh. It's good for doing things like the celery and so on that's going to be put into a soup or added as an ingredient. But for mill flour, I can't get that fine enough. A 30 mesh is very good for doing things like cornmeal, but you need that 250 to 300 mesh to make a good wheat flour in order to get it to do what you want it to do. Otherwise, it becomes real grainy. The bread doesn't stick together. It works. Okay, it worked for thousands of years with stone grinding and so on, but not to the quality that I want. You could actually use a coffee grinder that does an espresso and do a fairly good job of grinding up wheat flour, but that's only going to be a maximum of 28 to 30 mesh, which is well under the typical minimum of 80 mesh for a wheat flour. Again, know your equipment, know what you're dealing with. It's science, people. I know, a boring word, science. That means you've got to research, you've got to actually fact check, and it's just not I feel it's this way. Oh, I'm so woke, I feel it's this way. No. Science is science for a reason. Religion is religion for a reason. Science is based on observation, calculation, and fact. the same as mathematics. You get into quantum physics, theoretic physics, and religion, that starts off with more of a faith and theory. Then you can talk about your feelings, okay? If you're going to be doing cooking, forget the feelings. It's math, it's science. Amount of this to amount of this creates this. Too much of this or too little of this creates that. So, again, flour is an 80 minimum mesh size. A good white flour is a 250 to 300. And I'm finding that my stuff just doesn't cut it. Speaking of which, we go back down here. This is my latest acquisition. Okay. This little puppy, let me move this in closer because I'm fairly proud of this. I picked this little puppy up for basically $50. And it's exactly what it says. It's an espresso, but it goes down to an extremely fine. It goes down to almost a 30 mesh. And it comes with a container. I can do about a cup of stuff at a time. And the reason that I got this was I wanted a more finer powder for doing my spices and so on. But I basically, with everything that's going on, this month's budget did not allow me to buy the flour mill that I want, which will take and do the same thing. But this works really, really well for doing stuff like the celery, cornmeal. Especially, we're going to get into a recipe on cornmeal here shortly. And it works really well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take this, crush it up, boom. It's going to go through the large coffee mill, because if I downstep, it takes a little bit more time, maybe 2 or 3 more minutes, but it puts less wear and tear on each piece of equipment. So I'm not burning something out, overheating a motor, whatever, trying to get it to do everything at once. So this will go into the big coffee grinder first on probably about a 3 setting. From a 1 to, I think I go up to like a 10. This will be set on about a 3. That will make it small enough that this will be able to do its job without heating it up, but will make it a finer. My coffee grinder will do a mesh of about 20. This will do a mesh of about 30. Once I get the other one in, which will cost me about $80, I'll be able to do up to a 300 mesh. And then we're going to literally, pun intended, be really cooking. So, we've got here, this is my juicer. We've got our dehydrators. We've got our jarring and our condensing and so on. Over here we've got our hot air, got our ice cream, and as you see, I still don't have space. When the new house is built, I'm going to hand build a counter that I'll be able to work with all of this and have the shelving space. But welcome to the cluttered kitchen. Okay, so we're going to get this done, and then I will run through, and I want to crush this, put this through the main coffee grinder, the little industrial one that we got years ago, almost 25 years ago, and it's still going strong. Get this crunched down, and then we'll run it through this one, and then I'll show you what it is at the end. Wear a mask when doing this. Now, if you look at this, you'll see this is fine enough to use in a soup or whatever, but you see all the heavy particles. That's on the finest grind I can get with my big coffee thing, because espressos were not a big thing back when it was made. It was done to do a fine coffee grind, and that was about it. And as you can tell with some of this stuff, there's no way it's going to go through a even a 10 mesh, let alone a 20 mesh. And you need at least a 20 to 25 or 30 mesh for a good powder to make sauces and so on. This is good for soups to add in, but if I'm doing a sauce or whatever, I don't want these big pieces in there. So that's where this little guy comes in. Let's get done on this one. So once that's done, you see I've got a much finer, and I can actually make this finer by running it through again, sifting it and then running it through again. But this right here will work really well for sauces and so on. And that's why I spent the 50 bucks and got it. You'll notice though, I don't know if you can tell, I've still got a lot of, even though this comes with a container that slides in, this stuff is coming out so fine it kicks out. And so again, you want to wear some kind of face protection for, you don't want to get this stuff in your lungs. Seriously, people, when you're doing fine milling and so on, the particles are going to be in the air unless you're using some industrial closed system. And even if you go to these big places that manufacture flour, you can tell, okay? You just don't want it in your lungs. So take precautions for that. Then all of this will come loose and get cleaned. If I can remember how it comes off. There it goes. All of that will get cleaned and get set up for the next one. But now we have celery. I can actually sift this, run the other stuff through a couple of times and get it even finer. But I'm going to reach a point where this grinder is simply not going to take and do any finer than I need. And that's why I need to spend, I'm going to spend maybe another $80 or $90 next month when we have it in the budget to get the 300 mesh grinder. This way I can take everything from cracked corn and maize, cracked wheat bread, all of that, all the way down to a fine flour. And mind you, this is a project that's been going on. I've been slowly getting stuff. This was on sale. It's normally like €70. Got it on sale for €49. And so, you know, it's something that you gradually build. But if you have real limited space, a real limited budget and so on, a basic one that you can pick up, like one of the old coffee grinders that you can pick up like at an auction, or go check at your local Starbucks. Hey, do you have any old stuff that still works, but you want to get rid of it because it's just taking up space in a back storage area? You can typically pick some of this stuff up, if not free, very inexpensively, and it will do just as well for your basic cooking. Okay, so there's that, and I hope that you found this to be at least of a little bit of informational and useful.